Hello and hi. Well, we did it. We survived 2025. Within the past couple of years, I've started the new year off reflecting all the good things I've done in the old year. And I've done it for a few years on this channel now, and I do love doing it. So we're continuing. And it's really funny because last year, I was listening to all the astrologers talk about how lucky this year was supposed to be. All the astrology TikTok has been saying that Cancers are going to be one of the luckiest signs this year, and that better happen because I am a Cancer, and the last few years, personal, have been such a struggle bus. So please, this better be true. Well, that did not exactly happen, and personal life-wise, it's been very unstable, and I haven't had the same luck as I wish I would have had. However, I did have a lot of fun, and I was able to do a lot of really cool things. I know I talked about it last year, how I had a lot of these plans for Warped Tour, and I had concert tickets already booked and planned for some of my favorite bands. So in the area of me being able to enjoy life and do a lot of really fun events, that did happen. And that was the only good thing that happened this year. So I have to hold on to that. And it was amazing. It really was amazing. We're going to go into why it was amazing and all the fun things I got to do and share with you guys. But fingers crossed this year, I can get some of that luck that was promised to me in 2025 and 26. So let's get rolling. The first big event that happened was one of the most unique ones I've gotten to be a part of. Back in the beginning of the year, the Jonas Brothers announced they were celebrating 20 years of being a band and were hosting this JonasCon at the American Dream Mall in March for free. Yes, this was a free event. All you had to do was register and sign up for the specific events, but since it took place at the mall, it was open to anyone who wanted to go to the mall. And there was a lot of people that went to the mall that had no idea this was going on. There was so much online discourse prior to the event about how it was going to be canceled or that it would be a failure, but they pulled it together and completely pulled it off. I know others' experience did vary, but I'm so grateful with my experience. It was very long and tiring, but such a fun special day filled with new and familiar experiences. I've gone to see them in concert a few times prior to this, but this was my first time at the mall and the water park, even though I only live an hour away. I know I was privileged that this was truly a local event for me, but I met people who came from all over the world for this and made a whole vacation around the event and used it to also have a reason to spend some time in New York City. I can understand since I used Warped Tour for a reason to travel later in the year, but it was interesting seeing the dedication of some of these fans. We got to experience a mini Jonas Brothers concert under a giant Shrek inflatable. That alone will never happen again, as well as just being able to have some time to explore the water park for free before exploring the rest of the mall. They also had many pop-ups around like their original van you could sign, a bunch of photo ops, and a few specialty food items.
One Jonas brother. We just sat down to get shakes during JonasCon because we finally are doing one Jonas-related activity outside of performances. My shake, and then this one's hers. But yeah, Frankie Jonas was like literally like 10 feet away from us, and it wasn't that big crowd, so we got Frankie. It's so cute, and you know he's an adult now, and I watched him as a kid on Jonas, and now he's taller than us. But this is fantastic.
All year long, I was so excited saying that I got to meet the English voice of Ponyo, but now I realize my mistake. Noah Cyrus was Ponyo, and Frankie was Sosuke. At least he's still a part of the film. I'm such a terrible Studio Ghibli fan, but Ponyo was always lower on my list. Like, I always loved Kiki's Delivery Service, My Neighbor Totoro, like, those were always my favorites. So, I've only seen Ponyo once. But I love Frankie Jonas, I love the Jonas Brothers, and I just liked associating Frankie Jonas with Studio Ghibli because that's a very unique connection that people don't do. Anyways, that's unrelated, and I'm very happy to say that he was the first of many special celebrities that I got to meet this year. We will talk more about the Jonas Brothers soon, but chronically in the year, we're moving on to another Disney Channel star. In May, I got to see Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway with Liz Gillies and Milo Manheim. I've talked about how important of a show and film this is, and as I've gotten older, it's grown immensely, just like Audrey 2. Liz Gillies was phenomenal as Audrey, and seeing how huge the puppet of Audrey 2 is was low-key terrifying. And it's crazy that this year is the 40th anniversary of the film, so I'm excited to see if there's any celebrations or special events for it. I got to see a few shows later in the year, but the summer was focused on concerts. In June, I took my first solo trip down to DC for a few days. The main reason was for Warped Tour, which that event alone was so special, and I'm so grateful it's back in action. But it was also really fun to do a little exploring around a new city for me as well. The really amazing thing about DC is all the Smithsonian museums are free entry, so I took some time to visit the zoo with some new friends I met up from online. I got to see a panda in real life for the first time ever, as well as some other adorable little critters, and I also learned how hilly parts of DC is. I'm so used to cities mainly being flat, so that was the biggest surprise. We entered at the highest point, so it was all downhill, thankfully, to enjoy the animals. But it would be terrifying and exhausting to have to walk up on a normal basis. It would be the best workout low-key. Thankfully, the rest of DC was like any other normal city. And when I got to check out the American History Museum a few days later, it was a really nice walk from my hotel to the museum. I wanted to go to this museum for decades, knowing that they housed a lot of important film props on display, and clearly that's one of my various interests, obviously. I spent so many hours fangirling, but also just being completely blown away by all the exhibits, and also a little offended that so many items that I've used are a part of a history museum. I can't wait to go again to not only this one, but all the other museums in the Smithsonian bubble. Warped Tour is coming back this year again for the same weekend, so I already have my tickets. I adored my hotel that I stayed at, and I hope to stay there again this year. Last year, Warped Tour was such a special, amazing weekend, just like it's always been. It was so nice to see so many new and old favorite bands, but the highlights were definitely the Aquabats. It wasn't my first time seeing them, but they always put on such a fun show, and it's always unhinged in the best way. I also got to see Motion City Soundtrack for the first time. They're another band who I grew up listening to on a heavy rotation casually, but never got to see them before, and I'm so happy I was able to get as close as I did for their sets. One of the best things I love about Warped Tour is having a place to discover new bands, even if they've been around for a long time. Dance Hall Crashers was one of those for me. I love the rockabilly ska revival in the 90s, and this band had a few popular songs back then, but basically stayed in the 90s, aka they haven't released any more music since 1999, and I believe this was one of their first reunions in a good amount of time. Regardless of their history, I'm happy they were on the tour, and I was able to see them, because I'm a new fan. Of course, there's the staples that you can always depend on seeing at Warped. I grew up obsessed with Simple Plan from the beginning and never got a chance to see them live until maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And now this might have been my 6th time seeing them live. They always put on a fun show too, and it was such a perfect moment that I saw them in the rain. Simple Plan released their music video for their song Perfect, which was shot in the rain. In this essay, I will I ended up doing a lot of inner teenager healing this year because as cool as it was to see Simple Plan again, I also got the privilege to see Avril Lavigne, another singer I was obsessed with. Most people had the holy emo trinity that they loved back in the day, Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, and My Chemical Romance, and even though I adored all 3 of those bands as well, and still do, my 12-year-old self was obsessed with Simple Plan, Avril Lavigne, and Good Charlotte. And seeing Avril completed me having seen all 3 of those bands in person now, which is really cool. Look, it might be silly, but I'm really happy to look back on all this cool shit I've gotten to experience so far. And speaking of cool shit, I am so grateful that I got to see all my favorite bands live this year. I have no idea if that'll ever happen in the same year again, but I hope I get that experience again. Ice Nine Kills was killer at Warped Tour. I know I've seen them at least 5 times, but they are so theatrical and really lean into the campy horror aesthetic. So as gimmicky and capitalistic as they've become, it's still a fun band that I have such a soft spot for, and I'm excited to see how their sound continues to evolve now that they've been releasing more comic/action film music. Again, they're not the most original band, but as a Halloween/horror queen and a cinephile, they are just such a fun pleasure to watch and listen to. A few weeks later, I finally got to see Ghost. I've been obsessed with this band for the last few years, and missed out on the last 2 times they were touring around my area, so I was so happy to finally attend my first ritual. Of course, they made this concert experience phone free, so I wasn't able to record anything. And it was really sad because I had such good seats. I was able to be on the floor. Even though I wasn't super close to the floor, I was more towards the back of the floor. But the floor regardless. But it was still honestly enjoyable. I was able to fully be in the moment and just focus on enjoying the night and dance and sing the night away. And I got to get a picture with Vanessa, their host for the Ghoulbangers Ball promotion for their tour. So that was adorable. A few weeks after that, in August, I had a very interesting back-to-back concert weekend. 2 bands that were huge influences in my teenage years, but couldn't be further sound-wise from each other, yet are both connected by being fellow Jersey boys. I live local enough, an hour away, but the train routes don't run often at night. So I decided to have a staycation in the city, and it was the best decision. I was able to enjoy a nice morning hanging out in Seaport, and got to fill my theater kid self by checking out the Hamilton pop-up they had to celebrate the 10th anniversary, which was really cute. I started the weekend seeing My Chemical Romance again. Long live the Black Parade Tour Part 1, because they've already announced they're continuing the tour this year. And I already have tickets for it. I'm sorry, I love this band. I loved how theatrical they are as well. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I would love to see their music be turned into a Broadway show, especially after how much lore they dropped during this tour. It was amazing to see it live in person. I'm so grateful for that, but I'm also so grateful there were so many people live streaming and recording the concert from the various stops, because every concert progressed this dark storyline the band was telling. It wasn't just a concert, but instead this intricate lore that was subtly added every night. Gerard died every night and then came back to life for the next show until the end. And it was magical being able to be a part of the community discussing what could happen next. I know a lot of people were upset about them continuing the same tour for another year, but now that it's been officially 20 years since the album came out, I'm excited to see how this continues. I hate feeling old. How is it 20 years ago? This is how everyone must have felt when all the 80s nostalgia and reunions were around 20 years ago. So yes, My Chemical Romance was magical, and I got to indulge in my inner teenage emo self. And then the next night, it was time for the Jonas Brothers. To be fair, the Jonas Brothers did start out with more of a subtle pop-punk sound before being taken into the Disney cult, so it's not that surprising to be a fan of both. So yes, I got to experience JonasCon back in March, and then I returned 6 months later for the full concert experience. And because it was their opening show of the tour, they went all out. It was one of the greatest concerts I've gotten to experience so far. Not only did All American Rejects open, so it was amazing to see them for the first time as well this year, but we also got a few surprise guests that included Switchfoot, Jesse McCartney, and Demi freaking Lovato. Thankfully, once again, I already have a few concerts booked for this year, including Warped and My Chemical Romance, like I mentioned, but I'm excited to see who else will be going on tour later in the year. Another summer staple, I got to visit Six Flags a few times, see the cute overlays they did for the 4th of July weekend, and the new event that they held, the Heroes and Villains Fest. It's too early to know what the season will be like, but it's been an interesting transition so far and will continue to be, as they continue to keep on adjusting to the Cedar Fair acquisition. They got rid of Holiday in the Park this year, which honestly sucked. It was always a really fun event to go to get into the Christmas spirit locally, but I can understand logistically why they cut it. I still hate the decision though, but at least we still had Fright Fest, which I got to check out in the opening weekend, and then never was able to get back to again. They killed off Dr. Fright, and they better bring him back this year, because what the hell was The Awakening? Outside of the Six Flags bubble, I got to enjoy some more special moments during the fall. Elvira came out with a cookbook this year and had a mini book tour to promote it. And Cassandra/Elvira has always been such a huge inspiration and influence to me. So I was so happy that I got to do this little side quest for her autograph. Obviously, it was a really quick, brief moment, but knowing what it was, just a quick hi and bye moment, it was a very successful and satisfying side quest moment. And I've been using the cookbook to make some treats, and it makes me so happy anytime I open it and just see your signature. So that was a really cool highlight to share. And then it was New York Comic Con, an event that I'm so grateful I've gotten to enjoy every year now for the last couple of years, and every year it gets better. I know I've talked about this in other videos, but I ended up getting a 4-day pass for the first time because tickets were dropping the weekend I was at Warped Tour, and I didn't want to miss out. So I decided to get the early access membership and got my pass as well as my friends, and I will forever be so grateful that I did that. It ended up being the greatest decision, and everything lined up perfectly. The fun gamble with both Warped Tour and Comic-Con and other cons of that nature, a lot of the time you don't know what the content or guests are going to be when you purchase the tickets, so it's always a fun surprise when you're looking forward to these events and you get the news of your favorite band appearing on the schedule or favorite actors being a part of a panel, etc. And I've talked about this several times already, but I literally had the best moment this entire year being able to meet Christian Borle. I've talked about him a bunch within the last couple of years through various videos. He has become such an important favorite performer of mine, and I just adore him. I really hope that I can be friends with him in the future, genuinely. There's another video I did in the past where I talked about the Broadway shows I would love to pitch. My Chemical Romance was a part of that too, but I ended up talking about how I would adore to be a part of a Singing in the Rain Broadway revival with Christian Borle and Tom Hiddleston respectively, and it was such a special moment to be able to share that fantasy casting with him. I didn't mention me being a part of it, just him and Tom, but he was so excited about this idea too, and I'm holding on to that. I keep manifesting it. It's gotta happen. I also am hoping to manifest a Scream reunion panel at Comic-Con this year, so we'll see if it happens. It was on the survey, so there's a good chance for it. Jumping back once again to Warped Tour, I got to fly down to Orlando in November for round 2 of the festival. Although there were a lot of acts that played both at DC and Orlando, there were some bands that I missed seeing in DC, so I was very happy to be able to finally see Scene Queen and All Time Low, as well as some old favorites like Bowling for Soup and 303. It was such a perfect venue, so much better than DC's, although I love how local DC is, so I'm looking forward to returning to both again this year. And of course, when you go to Orlando, you gotta go to the theme parks. This time I was able to spend some time in Universal, and I got to check out the newest theme park, Epic Universe, which it was pretty epic. They got that name spot on. We only did one day, so there was still a lot that I didn't get to, but it was such a fun day, and I'm so excited to be able to return and complete more of the park. It was also a little bit of time since I've been to Disney, so it was nice to return again. It's one of my favorite places, and I completely fell in love with it in the early Christmas season. I know, it's insanely shocking as a self-proclaimed Halloween queen, but they had so many more magical things that you can only do during this season, and I'm so excited to be able to go back. I'm really happy that Warped Tour is back, and I can selfishly combine it with a Disney trip again. It's the best of both worlds. November was definitely one of the best months to enjoy, but I did get to enjoy a little bit of the Christmas season in December. I love being so close to New York, and I always try to book tickets to a show so I can enjoy another production and spend some time indulging in the Christmas decorations and holiday markets. So I was able to do that and finally see a show that's been on my list forever that's so important to me. Ragtime. I've also talked about how I've dreamt about being able to see the show live in that same previous video I mentioned. So when it was announced that I was playing at Lincoln Center, I had to make sure I got tickets. It was another phenomenal show. I took my dad and my best friend, and both of them thoroughly enjoyed it. It is genuinely one of the most important shows in terms of material that you'll ever see. The cast was phenomenal. Everything was phenomenal, and it's such a shame how relevant it still is today, especially since it takes place over 100 years ago at the turn of the 20th century. But I always talk about how much I recommend everyone see it if you're able to. I'm really grateful that I got to see it, and I'm so happy they extended it. So it was supposed to close in the beginning of January, but now it's running till June 2026. So if you're seeing this and you're interested, there's a lot of time to still see it if you're in the area or if you're doing a trip to New York, because I highly recommend it. It was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. But like I said in the beginning, I am so grateful and so blessed that I was able to fulfill my year with a lot of really fun activities and events that were special. Hopefully, personal life-wise will be a lot more stable and exciting in the more positive ways, but it's so important to be able to enjoy the spontaneity of life in a way. And even though a lot of these events I planned far in advance for, there were so many surprises that I got to enjoy, like Elvira's book tour, like meeting Christian Borle. I didn't expect that to happen, and so it's a nice balance where there's things that I already have that I can look forward to, but there's so much that I have no idea what's going to happen this year. And so I'm trying to look into this positively and know that I have a privilege to enjoy life right now, because a lot of what's happening in the world is a giant shit show. But this is also why I like having this little bubble as an escape. And I hope that you guys can enjoy that too, because as important as it is to pay attention to what's going on in the world, it's also important to protect your mental health and your sanity. And that's also why I love making the videos that I love making. So that's a wrap on 2025. This was a really fun year for me, even though it wasn't one of the best years of my life. It's so important of how many amazing moments I had. And I'm hoping that I can keep bringing those amazing moments into 2026. And if not doubling it, but tripling them would be phenomenal, because I deserve it. I had a couple of rough years in the past. So that's not even being selfish or privileged. I know what I deserve. And I always thank you guys for watching along. I know I said this in the past, even if I don't show it, because I'm always awkward trying to figure out how to interact with everyone. That's why I put all these videos up and just kind of leave it up for whoever wants to watch it. I really appreciate it, genuinely. And I'm really thankful of you guys watching and enjoying what I'm able to do and what I can experiment with. And I know that I kind of fell off doing gaming videos, but they'll be back again this year too. I have a lot more planned, and I'm really excited of what I'm able to execute for this year. So you can stay tuned, and here's to a healthy, happy 2026 for everyone around. But until then, I will see you in the next one.